All right, everyone, welcome back to the Midnight Magic Musings channel. I am your host, the Lord Cephas. I am joined by the Earl of Florida. Earl, how are you doing this evening?
I'm actually doing pretty well. We have nice clear skies down here in Florida. Sorry, Northeast. Meh.
Now, Earl, that was unnecessary. This is supposed to be a celebratory night, and you took it in a very negative place. You called out a subsection of the United States that honestly the air quality is not in the good range, as they used to say with our local meteorologist down this way. So very sorry for those dealing with the fallout from the Canadian
To be
wildfires. Uh,
literally. Meh.
wow. Okay, I did not realize this is the way tonight's show was going to go, but that's totally okay. Um, Well, what have you stumbled into? If you are checking this show out live, we appreciate you being here. Leave a comment, like, chat, subscribe. You know the things that you need to do. Um, this is Midnight Magic Musings, episode number 23. We have had a long couple of weeks, both the Earl and I, with some sickness, and then work schedules just being so difficult. It's really hard to record out of the back corner of an airport for me. It's hard for the Earl to record when he's got some other things going on as well. And so
It's
we're
called
finally able.
summer. Kids are home. That's a big part of my problem. I've got 5 kids running around. So this week I've got the taser and I've managed to subdue them. They're like raptors in the cage right now. I just threw some popcorn and candy in there. They're okay. They're fed.
I would contact the authorities and just make sure that that is absolutely not the case. That there is food in addition to quote popcorn end quote.
Candy
Wait,
too.
sugary candy goodness?
And some sugar free.
Well, I mean, if you're not going to like poison your children and you eating sugar free, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, what's the harm in that?
Exactly.
They're gummy bears. What is the harm in that? They're chewy, gooey, ooey fun.
And the cage is not electrified at all.
Literally, why did you think to go there about an electrified cage? I really don't know what to say about you.
And anyway, so we are celebrating a certain magical number that we have hit that we have not been able to celebrate together yet. And here it is. We are now part of the 100 Club. That's 600 less than the 700 Club. But it's still important to us. And we want to thank all of you for getting us there, liking us, continuing to like us, or at least liking one of us. I don't know which one it is. It's probably me, but it's okay if you want to say Lord Cephas because, well, he's contractually obligated to be 50% of the 100. So we'll let him have 49 of your subscribers. How does that work? I don't know, but it's the way it's going to work. So thank you for all the love, the comments, the likes, the follows, the subscribes, the shares. We love you.
We do love you, and I think we can all realize that the true star of this show is certainly not me. I'm but the humble host. You are the straw that stirs the drink here on the Midnight Magic Music channel. I think we can all agree about that, Earl. Can we not find some commonality, some common ground there?
Spitballs?
No. No, why would we want spitballs? Tonight is a night of celebration. We actually tipped the scales. We're at 103 subscribers as of tonight. So we appreciate everyone that has commented, as the Earl said, or given us some critiques. We appreciate that, or just some good old feedback. Just had a little fun with us. We absolutely enjoy getting to do that as well. So tonight is a bit of a celebration. It's kind of a restart for us. We started this journey, almost a year ago. So, 2 weeks away? Um, no, 3 days away, excuse me, from having started this journey about a year ago. And so we've had some starts and stops, but again, we appreciate everybody being here with us along the way. So, why wear the shades? Because my future is so bright that I have to wear these shades even on the inside. Okay, I really don't have to have my shades on. It's just me doing it for the look, actually. I'm not actually going to wear these shades the entire program. That would be kind of cheesy. And we are a lot of things, But Earl, we are not cheesy because it's not easy being cheesy. That's what Chester Cheetah would say on the Cheetos commercials. No? Yes? No? Yes? He's not going to comment on that. He's having a little bit of an internet issue. I totally understand. So, what we're going to do is we are going to launch into our very first topic. Now, it's kind of a big one. And, it takes a great man to admit when he's wrong. It takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. I am actually physically a big man. So I'm going to come on here on a live broadcast. I'm going to spill my guts. I'm going to lay it all out there for everybody. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, we were doing a Midnight Magic Musings episode, and the discussion came up. And the Earl and I were discussing the possibilities of where would Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 land mathematically? In other words, would it be a success? Well, at the time, and this is just 2 days before the movie opened, it was tracking for a very low debut. In fact, it landed around 116, $117 million, which for any other movie franchise would be fantastic. For this movie franchise, that was kind of middling. In fact, it was only about what 7 or 8 million more than Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania had its very first week, and we remember the challenges that that movie had, and it finally left theaters. It's on Disney Plus now, but it was a significant loss for Marvel. It was really an eye-opening experience for Kevin Feige and those who are at Marvel. So there was discussion about how will Guardians do because that was the next Marvel movie being released. And to be completely honest with the crowd, I made a bold prediction. And the Earl was gracious enough to let me run my mouth unknowingly. And I said, based on the tracking of this movie, just 48 hours, 2 days before the movie came out, I made a bold prediction. I said on this program that Guardians of the Galaxy would not, based on the tracking only, would not cross the $700 million threshold. So we always try to be honest on this show. So Earl, I'm going to let you tag in on this one. Can you give the listeners, the viewers, if you will, an update as to what number Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 currently stands at the box office? Cumulative.
Cumulative. No, I can't. But I do. It is over 750. Why? Because, well, that's high roll.
Yeah, I believe the number I saw as of the receipts for today, I think was close to 780 something was what they were forecasting out today. So here's what we're going to do, Earl. I'm going to bow my head and say, sir, you were correct. I was incorrect. You win that particular debate that we were having. No excuses. I own my opinion based on the data that I had. I felt like it was good. The second weekend made all the difference for this movie.
Yeah.
Now, is it a massive success? It beat number one. It is not going to catch number two. I just don't think it's got enough theaters left to be in. When you have Transformers coming out this weekend, you're going to have Indiana Jones coming out here shortly. Mission Impossible. You've already got you've already got Fast X. You've already got Little Mermaid out. Super Mario Brothers still out in some theaters. It was out at least as of 2 weeks ago in our local theater. So it's being squeezed out. I don't know that it's going to have more legs to it. Maybe, it hangs around to get close to 800 million, which I think would be a very reasonable number for where this movie was tracking to where it actually has ended up. Earl, it's your opportunity, my brother. Take your victory lap,
Well,
take your bow, hit me with your best shot.
well, I remember you were so nice and generous over the Ant-Man fiasco that I wouldn't stoop to besmirching the. Well, okay, yes, I am. So, hate to break it to you people out here, but according to the box office, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has officially made $11 million more than Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Total box office worldwide. However, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has made $11 million less than Guardians of the Galaxy 1 in North America. So that means that Guardians of the Galaxy 1 made $11 million more than Guardians 3 just in the United States. Whereas in Guardians 3, in the entirety of North America has made $11 million less than the first one. So I would love to jump up and down and point my fingers and go, ha ha ha. But you know what? Guardians 3 is only about, what, $20 to $30 million more than the first two movies. I think this one's around 250 and the first one was like right 200 or 225, I think it was.
It was in that range, yeah.
And the second one was around 35. So, I mean, it didn't really flop. I'm going to say no, it didn't flop. The same amount of money the other two did.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you didn't count the other two as flops, technically from looking at the book, this one did just as well, roughly, as the other two. So if the other two were not flops, then this one technically is not a flop. However, we all know that the almighty comic book movies, and this is the bookend of a trilogy, there's a certain expectation that it's going to bank some massive money, like all the preceding trilogy bookends, like Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and Thor 3, Ragnarok. Not talking about Thor, Love and Thunder, we're talking about the bookend. But then here lately, we've been getting into the superhero fatigue. Is that part of it? You know what? That might be. I still am hesitant to say that it's superhero fatigue. But what is it?
I really think there's a lot of issues in play. I don't think it's one particular issue. I think there can be a level of superhero fatigue. I think this movie suffered a little bit from a little bit of a bad taste left in people's mouths from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which, I watched it finally. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was terrible. I knew what they were going for. It was a little bit of Marvel meets Star Wars, to me at least, in a way. It was okay. Did it blow me away? No. Was the CGI a little suspect in some places? Yes, but for the love of all that's holy, you know how much CGI goes into these movies as it is. Nothing's ever going to be perfect across the board. You don't have the money to pay for that. So, I will
the
say,
money we did have, some of it was siphoned to another project that they full-heartedly admitted. Now, I'm not going to throw that under the bus for Ant-Man and the Wasp. I gave it a B, and a lot of the people in the theaters saw it was anywhere from a B plus to a B. It was in that 85 range for the audience scores. So yeah, to me it was a decent movie. Did it wow everything? No. Did it make you want to run out in traffic? No. It was a movie that I watched, and I ended up watching it again on streaming to see how it held up in my mind. Right. And I would again call it a B. Would I watch it again? Probably not for a while, but it wasn't as bad as a lot of people, in my opinion, wasn't as bad as it was made out to be. But on top of the woes that was going on with, trying to make your big bad, trying to evolve us into a threequel, trying to do this, trying to do that, and all the extra that has nothing to do with the movie, in real life to it. It had a lot of issues because of all of that. But, you know, I wouldn't I wasn't going to put the faults or hangups of Ant-Man 3 on Guardians of the Galaxy because to me they're different. They're not the same actors, not the same characters, not the same storyline, not even the same vision. So for me to blame Ant-Man 3 on some of Guardians 3, I would say to me it would have been an opposite. People sort of wanted to go see Guardians 3 to prove that, that IP is better and can stand it up. I haven't seen it yet. You have. So do you think that Ant-Man 3 did have some bearing on the box office for Guardians of the Galaxy 3? And was it for the good or was it for the bad?
All right. So I'll answer that question this way. Anytime something doesn't do well, everybody jumps on with both feet. And they tend to stomp that thing into the ground. And anything associated with it oftentimes carries some of that stink, for lack of a better term. And I think there was a segment of the fan base that did not run out and see this movie after the last one. Now, like you said, it's not the same story. It's not the same characters. It's not the same writers. It's not the same directors. You have to admit, James Gunn has done a really strong job of protecting his characters. Now, listen, he didn't create all these characters. That would be a Stan Lee, Jack Kirby thing years ago. But you know what he did do? He's the one who shepherded these characters onto the silver screen. So in his mind, they're his characters. In his mind, these are his characters, and he's protected them quite a bit. And I think it's just a different franchise that to me stands out different than all the others, just because the way it's handled. I saw it.
Yeah.
Spoiler-free review. I loved it. There you go. How you like that? It hit a lot of what I wanted, and it gave me some stuff I didn't think I would want or didn't know to want. Was it perfect? Nope. Let's be honest with you, Earl. There's no movie that's ever perfect. They're entertained. No, dude, I'm not going to have my life changed by a movie. I'm going to be entertained.
Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade.
That was very touching emotionally, actually. I thought you were going to say Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. And I was going to say, well, that was life-changing for a different reason. But Guardians 3 looks like it's going to be a success. Now, we always preface this with we're not counting the marketing budget because that's not rolled into this 250 number. If it's 100 million, it's really 350. If it's more than that, so we don't actually know those numbers. We can only go off of the budgetary numbers. Now, in the back of my mind, Earl, I would guess the marketing budget's pretty high, especially with the trilogy. But we'll see what the quarter numbers show when Disney has its next earnings call. But you would have to say that Guardians finished on a high note. And so now we get what, 5 months off? You get June, July, August, October, November. No, 6 months off. Until the Marvels come out. Yep. So
the question is that really being off because you've got Secret Invasion coming, you've got whatever's going to happen with any of these others. They talk about Echo, they talk about even the Agatha. Some reports are saying they're going to scrap these. Then some reports are like they're done. They're just going to get it out there anyway. So which report should we believe?
That's the hard part. You have your deadlines and your variety reportings. You have Puck Magazine, who does a really good job doing a lot of reporting. And then you got hacks on YouTube like me, who just basically makes things up. So I don't know which one to believe. I'm kind of in the phase of my fandom now, Earl, where I just say, just let me see it and make my own decision.
Yep.
Don't tell me it's a good movie. Let me determine. I mean, I'm glad that people think it's good, but let me determine what's good and what's not. Because anymore, I don't trust a lot of people's opinions.
Yeah.
I honestly think the critic score should have been higher on this. I think the audience score should have been higher on it. But again, That's just my opinion. If it didn't hit you right, it didn't hit you right, and that's okay. All right. Well, speaking of okay, we have another movie opening this week, and it's actually out in theaters right now, and that is Transformers: Rise of the Beast. And what I want to do, Earl, with this topic, I want to do just I don't know, a little bit of forecasting, uh, if you will, kind of get an idea of where things are going to go. And Box Office Pro has it landing somewhere between 45 and $50 million. That is at the domestic level, so it doesn't sound like it's a huge opening. But if you begin to take in the worldwide cume, I'm actually pulling up the data right now. The opening weekend range is about 46 to 56. They figure somewhere in there is where
Okay.
this movie is going to land by. Remember, it's only a 2 day weekend, so
Yeah.
that's their range. Domestically, the total range is about 93 to 133, is
Yeah.
what they're saying. So
And,
based on, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and their budget's sitting around 200 million.
So you and I both know that means you've got to get it up to about six.
Yeah, you need to bank some money.
You do. You better bank it now. I
Yeah.
think before you have Mission Impossible coming out, before you have Indiana Jones, before you, uh, well, we have other.
Elementals.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of conflict in the market. Plus, you still have Little Mermaid, still have Guardians, still have Fast X sitting in theaters.
Yep.
There's some Spidey movie we're going to talk about here in just a little bit as well. I think Transformers can do okay. It's just going to have to show some legs.
Yeah.
I think, look, let's be honest. This is Beast Wars, okay?
Yep.
And there's a 90s nostalgia that comes with that. Now, Earl, you have to remind me because it's been a minute. Did you watch the Beast Wars cartoon in the 90s for the Transformers?
I probably watched some of them. Once you got away from Optimus and the old school, and they had all the many different Transformer series, I wasn't as faithful to all the different adaptations and iterations.
Mm-hmm. I think there can be a nostalgia factor for kids of the 90s that might come out and support this maybe a little bit more. It could affect the range a little bit on one side or the other. I will say this. I read this morning the franchise as a whole has accumulated over $1.5 billion.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, that's domestically, that's not worldwide.
Well, worldwide, I think it was like 5 point something billion.
And a lot of these movies, to be completely candid with you, do better overseas than they do here.
Yep.
You were out a couple of weeks ago. You're having some health issues, and we talked about Fast X. That it's not really made for here. It's
No.
honestly made for overseas. That's where you see the massive amount of accumulation of cash. It does okay here, but it's not really the focus.
Mhm.
It's how much money are you gonna accumulate in some of these other markets, and so it's going to be interesting to see how Transformers does. I think it looks great.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that's going to concern me is how do they treat Optimus Prime? Is he Optimus Prime or is he an Optimus Prime that is indecisive?
Well,
Or
you also have to remember that this is a prequel to the very first Transformers movie. So I think the first one was in the early 2000s, I think it was.
no, the first Transformers movie was in 1986. An Optimus Prime.
Okay. The first one done by Michael Bay, the live action one with Shia LaBeouf. That was in the early 2000s, I believe.
It was,
and
yes.
They came out with Bumblebee a few years back with John Cena, Dylan O'Brien, Haley Steinfeld were in it, and that one was a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, Beast Wars, takes place between Bumblebee and the first one, which took place in the 2000s. So this one takes place somewhere in the 90s. I think it's the late 90s, like 95.
It does take place in the 90s. That is correct.
So,
and to address your earlier statement, 2007. is the year that
Yep.
Transformers came out.
So yeah, so this one you're going to have because remember in the first Transformers uh, movie in 2007, the live action one, they weren't sold on humans. They weren't really too friendly with them. They didn't have any trust in them, that sort of thing.
I mean, who does?
So we have to, I might end up, my son actually wants to watch all the Transformers movies and then go see this one. I'm thinking about letting him watch Bumblebee and then watching the first Transformers and say, okay, this movie we're going to go see takes place in between there. So everything that happens afterwards, you can watch again afterwards because it's not the same Optimus Prime as what was it, the Last Night or 3, 4, 5. Again, the later ones, it's a previous version of Optimus. So you have to temper what you're going to expect. In my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. Again, the marketplace dictates this stuff. People get upset. Well, this movie didn't make that much money. Marketplace. If people don't want to go see it, they're not going to go see it. Well, I don't like the reason they didn't go see it. It doesn't matter their reason. They just didn't go. People vote with their pocketbook. An old saying from when my mama was alive, that's how they vote. And if you are not interested in this movie, you don't go see it, guess what? That is a loud statement to Paramount that there's not the brand interest in Transformers that we thought there was. It's a harsh reality, but look, Robert Meyer Burnett, who is one of the brightest minds in Hollywood, has been for years, makes this statement all the time, Earl. It's show business, not show friends. And it's such a simple concept, but it's true. We're not in business to make people feel good. We like to entertain. I'm interested in you coming and watching my movie, plunking your money down, and if I can work it out just right, get you to come back again. Maybe see it a second time.
If we were doing this a few years ago, I think we would have a completely different outlook on it because everybody who's making movies, talking about movies, both sides of it, we know that there's a very real truth in the fact that the theaters have never been the same since COVID.
Right.
And part of that, a large chunk of that, in my opinion, is the streaming wars that are still going on because I can watch stuff on Peacock, was it like 45 days later? I can watch HBO, Warner Brothers, Discovery stuff on the new Max, I think 60 days later. CBS dropped some, I think it's like 50-something days later. So for me, I'm like, unless my kids want to drag me out kicking and screaming or I have to go see it, I'm like, all I got to do is wait a month and a half or less than 2 months for a lot of these movies to drop. And so I think that's still having a big impact because what are the biggest box office knockouts since COVID? Spider-Man 3 and Top Gun Maverick. They decimated the box office. But we were so used to seeing those numbers before COVID. I mean, if a movie hit $1 billion, we were like, okay, yeah, that's not uncommon. Now, if a movie hits $1 billion, it's like, what? I mean, heck, look at Puss in Boots, the last one that dropped out. It's like, what? And so I think some of these production companies and movie companies they're seeing that there's going to have to be change. In order to make money, they need to be smarter with how they spend the money. And Disney and Warner Brothers, HBO them being one, these are two massive companies that I don't think have understood the fact that sometimes quality will beat your quantity because they're used to, we're going to spend $200-300 million to make a movie and we're going to hit $1 billion. But those $1 billion movies aren't there like they used to. That's what terrifies us with Indiana Jones, So it'll be interesting. And what counts as success because what was it, 2017 was Justice League, I think, dropped.
Yeah.
And so it was around $250 million to make, and it only made a little over $700 million. Guess what? That's what a lot of movies are doing now that are being counted as successes.
Yep.
You know, but that was a different time frame when movies, superhero movies were gold. But now, Thor: Love and Thunder, that's pretty much what it made, and it's technically counted as a success. It didn't make everybody happy, but it made enough money for it to be counted as a success. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, same frame of money making, how much they spent and how much they made. Guardians 3 is going to be counted as a success. It may not be a box office $1 billion knockout, but it's going to be counted as a success. So, I think there's going to be a lot of changes on how things are counted as, did it succeed or did it fail? And
I think you have to do that from what you're saying because we have been conditioned that every Marvel movie would do $1 billion, and then Top Gun Maverick hits $1 billion, Super Mario hits $1 billion, Spider-Man: No Way Home hits $1 billion. That is still not the norm. Those are special circumstances. I think
that was 3 movies in the past 4 years.
I think at a certain point you're gonna have to come to a realization that this is now the goalpost.
Yeah.
This is where we have to go. It's not $1 billion anymore.
Yeah.
That way, and that way, to be honest, $1 billion should be special. But for about 5 or 6 years there, it was like, yeah, well, that's what we're supposed to do.
That was the benchmark.
The awe was lost on a lot of the audience of what was being accomplished. And I think 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll look back and go, wow, that was some kind of era where films were grossing that kind of money. I don't ever see Transformers franchise being to that level. I think it plays off of nostalgia and little kids. And I think more than that, it's very much like Jurassic Park, which is, what was the last movie? Dominion, right?
Yep.
Okay. It only made about 660 something. It made less than $700 million. Now, on the surface, we call that a flop.
Yeah. But
the millions of dollars that they are still raking in today from toys. Go to Walmart. They're everywhere. They're Jurassic Park branded. The stuffed animals. At Christmas time, they're going to sell dinosaurs that make noise when you hit the button, drive the parents crazy. Go ahead, grandparents, aunts and uncles, buy them for the kids. Parents love that kind of stuff. They're making money still to this day off of that intellectual property. So for them,
at the amusement park, Jurassic Park rides at amusement.
Yep. So, which that's a whole different discussion about why Universal's killing it in a different era of that. They're still making money, so they're not trying to clear $1 billion on the movie. Hey, you know what? It's nice if we can, but in reality, we've got all these other pieces of that IP that are making us money. But we've got to get a movie out there to capitalize the rest of that. So it's an interesting little time.
Yep.
For Disney, it's important. They have to tie those two together going forward. You need to lower your costs, but also sell more units of the merchandise. Otherwise, it's not going to go well. We'll save our elementals talk for next week about how that is forecasting and shaping up. But to kind of bring the Transformers thing to a close, it's going to bear watching. I'm still waiting for my next Bumblebee movie. That soft reboot that softly rebooted and then never did anything else. So
yeah, well, there is that.
We'll see. We'll see what Mr. Bay has in store for it. Yeah, that's right. Follow the money. All right.
Go get it.
Well, that's exactly right. Let's talk about our next topic, which is The Little Mermaid. And truly, this movie is swimming upstream. Swimming upstream. Couldn't help myself. Had to do it. It's very interesting, this movie, Earl. Now, there was a lot of talk going into it. How big of a success could it be? You know what? Domestically, it's done pretty well.
Yeah.
In fact, it passed the total number that the animated movie made when it came out. Now, that number does not take into account cartoons. Little Mermaid 2, all the VHS sales. Hey, kids, go Google that one. Those are just big cassette tapes, right, that we put in our things called a VCR. Earl, they made millions of dollars off of those. That number doesn't encapsulate every bit of the IP. But just going off of the ticket sales, it's passed it. Now, with inflation being what it is, it certainly should have passed it.
Yeah.
But it's done fairly well at the domestic level. But as we talked about on the show, it's really struggled uh, overseas for a lot of reasons. When it opened here in the United States, it only did $2.5 million in China.
Mm-hmm.
Its opening weekend. That is not going to get it done. And if your budget is 200 million, you are expecting other countries to come strong, not
Yeah.
just the United States, and they're just not getting that.
Exactly.
So, from everyone that has seen it, I know you're going to be taking, or you did take the little ones to see it, didn't you? Well,
Today.
I am going to give you the opportunity. The floor is yours, sir. Do you want to share a few thoughts on The Little Mermaid?
Well, one thing before I go into it that's of note is they actually released so the budget was $250 million, right? They released the marketing budget too.
Okay. I'm 100 and what?
$40 million marketing budget.
On top of the 250.
Yep. So we're at 390 for our budget and for the marketing budget.
Okay.
So $390 million. And so far it's made 343. And again, like you said, it in North America, it's made over $200 million. So it's done a pretty good showing because it's been what, 10 days, about 10 days, 11 days, just short of 2 weeks. By what?
About, yeah.
You can say 2 weeks, but I mean, so it's not doing bad. I think a lot of the problem is okay. I'm Disney. I'm making The Little Mermaid. I'm Disney. I'm talking to Sony. I've been working with them. How about we push back any kind of conflicting movies that we can do and give it a little bit of buffer space and not fight each other for money? But that didn't happen. So either way, I went to see The Little Mermaid with my 7-year-old, my 8-year-old, and my 12-year-old. The 7 and 12-year-old are boys. The 8-year-old's a girl. The movie's somewhere around 90 minutes, a little over long. And so for the first half an hour, it kept my kids' attention because under the sea, you had musicals, you had Ariel, you had the mer people, the mermaids. You had Sebastian, who was no longer French. He's now Jamaican, for the record. I don't know why, but, we just rolled with it. So it was very colorful, very engaging, a lot of music, soundtrack going on. So they were engaged. After that, for the 30 minutes in the middle, my son started to go to sleep, the 7-year-old, and my 8-year-old said, when is it going to get good again? Now, again, these are kids, a little smaller, so they like, a shiny penny or a squirrel. We keep thinking. But I can understand where they're coming from because what they decided to do was they padded the backstory for Prince Eric,
right?
How their little tryst during the 3 days was. So I understand why they did it that way. But even my 12-year-old was like, I need to go to the bathroom twice during that 30-minute space period. So they lost a little bit of the attention for the kids. And I understand why. But when the main character suddenly doesn't talk for almost half an hour, that when before you can't get her to shut up or stop singing, now she doesn't talk. That's a little bit of an issue. Then the last 30 minutes, anybody who's seen The Little Mermaid knows what happened. So we see flashy, fun animations, soundtrack, the roar, the ebb, the flow. So they enjoyed the movie. They said, I asked them, would you watch this again? They said, yes, at home. So that's better than no. For myself, I know there are a lot of people out there, and I'm going to lightly touch on this.
Okay.
There's a lot of people out there who's upset over the ethnicity of Ariel. And my oldest put it best. She goes, well, if you want to be technical, she should be, translucent, see-through, because a lot of the creatures closer to the bottom of the ocean, they're translucent, they're see-through because they don't need that. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of that's actually pretty wise there. Do I have a problem with them changing Ariel's ethnicity? Ariel's? No, I don't. I watched the movie. I don't have a problem with it. And they showed a wide assortment of ethnicities in the mer people. I don't care. Does not affect the story for me. The story is more or less the same. You have the mermaid, the prince, two different worlds. It's a Romeo and Juliet story pretty much. It doesn't change the story. So for me, it has no impact if they wanted to make her purple, pink, whatever, because the story was about a mermaid girl wanting to go to this different world, so to speak, and the prince who, in the end, when she finds out she's a mermaid, has to choose: is she going to be, oh no, the mer people? Nope, nope, I'm choosing a human.
Right.
The story is the same. It's about heart. I don't care. They changed Sebastian to Jamaican. Do I care? No, not really, because they put them in around the South American area, South America with all the Caribbean islands and stuff like that.
Right.
So no problem with that. Everything that they did, I don't care. It's for the story. It's just the dragging part in the middle, which was part of the storyline, was the only issue that seemed to have a lot of kids going to the bathroom during that 30 minutes. But then nobody got up to go to the bathroom the last 30 minutes.
So let me throw this out at you. And I want to address what you just said. Mm-hmm. The politics of which do not interest me to discuss.
I don't care about them because
I am fascinated on a personal level that you have this discussion happening around the world of, well, we should be more accurate to the time frame this happened in. It's a kids movie. I'm not saying we deny the history of treatment of individuals, but I think you're stretching that one a little bit too far. Yeah. It's still entertainment, and my 6-year-old's not going to sit there and watch a piece that depicts certain horrors that absolutely were detestable.
Yeah.
Why do we want? Because the 6-year-old needs to know. We send our children to school. We raise our kids to let them know the truth of history. And look, there are happy parts of history. There are terrible parts of history. We're human. Our humanity has been on display for thousands of years, sometimes for the better, oftentimes for the worse, unfortunately. Okay. And it just seems like this has become a convenient scapegoat for a lot of people. But to that point, you know what? That also means for Disney, they're not going to make the money they need to make.
Yeah.
And let me finish this and I'll let you have it. Let's say this thing only makes 400 million total. I'm just making up, or 450. Well, if you needed 600, and by the way, that's not counting the marketing budget. If you need 600, then you fell 150 short. That is indeed a massive fail.
Exactly.
Fair or not fair, reasons, roll them up. What do we say to our kids? Roll them up, pitch them in the pan. It's pretty much what we're doing here. The numbers are still going to say at the end of the day, not a success. And I think that's one of Disney's main issues is sometimes they can't get out of their own way. Sometimes they're snake bit. Yeah. I would argue that the Jonathan Major situation, they're snake bit because you built everything up around one person and now they're having legal issues. Well, let the legal system play out. That's what it's there for. But now you've got to figure out something. You're going to keep him? You're going to cut him loose? If you keep him, there's fallout from that. No matter what the legalities turn out to be. If you cut him loose, there's fallout from that. There's recasting. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to go down the road of a different variant. You know what? It has a very short shelf life. So it's tough being Disney right now. They've got a lot of issues to work through. Some of them self-created. Some of them, it's just the world we live in. And in others, it's like, can we just catch a break? Yep. And we'll see what becomes of it. But at least domestically, Little Mermaid has done well. I fear that overall, it's not going to make the number that it needs. But again, we'll see if it has any legs, which is funny because mermaids don't have legs. They don't until the end of the movie when they become human. All right. I've got one more main topic here, and I don't know how you're feeling, Earl, but my spidey senses are tingling right now. They're tingling because we had the next installment of the Spider-Man trilogy. It came out this past weekend. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse followed up on the success of the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now you got to understand when Into the Spider-Verse dropped in 2018, which by the way had one of our commenters talked about the soundtrack for Little Mermaid. I would argue that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse had one of the most amazing soundtracks, not just of an animated movie, but just overall. But
Yeah.
it made about $35 million when it opened in 2018. This one, number 2, Across the Spider-Verse, crossed 120 million. I know inflation. I know ticket prices cost more than they did, but you still basically tripled your opening figure of the first entry into this particular franchise. I don't know how else you look at it and don't say uh, it's already a success just for that alone. It's in the top 10 all-time animated openings. Obviously, The Lion King wins it, and that's the remake, by the way, the one they did in 2019, the one John Favreau did. You've got
Yep.
that. You've got The Incredibles, some movie a couple of months ago about some plumbers from Brooklyn. Yeah, something about that. And there's some others in there: Finding Dory, Frozen, Shrek, Toy Story 4. It's found its place in there, and that's a pretty good list to be across of.
Yeah.
When you've already earned over 60% of Into the Spider Verse's, not just opening, Earl, total Cume
They were a little over.
already,
Yeah.
you've done really, really good, which means they're probably going to cross the total Cume possibly by the end of this weekend.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how the numbers play out, but it's had a very strong start at the box office. Any thoughts on Spidey crushing it again?
Well, here's one for you. And so we've got Spider-Man crushing it right now.
Yes.
They're sitting at $247 million in a week. Now, just for North America, the box office for its opening week is 159.9. So we're going to say $160 million.
Okay, rounded up, sure.
Okay, that's with Guardians of the Galaxy 3 there. All these other movies obviously still at the box office. Now, here's to put into perspective. It cost $100 million to make. Guardian Galaxy 3 made $250 million to make. In the opening week in North America, Spider-Man made $160 million.
Mm-hmm.
In the first 2 weeks in North America, Guardians of the Galaxy made $172 million. So there's only $12 million more Guardians 3 made in 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, versus Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in 1 week with $150 million less in its production budget. This is what we're talking about. Spider-Man is going to make their money. They already got another one that's planning on coming out in 2024. They got a spin-off that they're already planning on doing. And this is why, because they're being smart. They have an IP that they treated with respect and cared for the fans, has a huge fan base. They didn't sink a massive amount of money in the second one, $100 million. They have a great cast in there, too. Voice talent, that's great. And they almost covered Guardians of the Galaxy 3's first 2 weeks release in 1 week. That should tell us something. That should tell all the movie companies a little bit something.
We've said it before tonight, Earl. I'm gonna say it again. If you give the people something they want,
yep,
they will support it. Now, Earl, we cover a lot of stuff on this channel. Everything from movies, television, pop culture, to sports and different things, wrestling, all kinds of stuff we talk about. It's because it's our channel to talk about stuff we like. And we always have stuff to think about and talk about. It's simple. You have sporting events that are not selling out as much anymore because you know what people have figured out? I can sit home on my couch and I can watch my alma mater play every weekend. I can subscribe to ESPN Plus, and though I went to a very small school, our games are on every weekend.
Yeah.
Not just football, basketball, baseball,
Golf.
women's softball. Yes. I can watch a swimming and diving meet from Huntington, West Virginia, if my school is there at Marshall University doing a swimming and diving competition. Field hockey, lacrosse, whatever the sport is, guess what? It's pretty much streaming now. It's changed the
Yep.
way people consume media, which also means you've got to give me a reason to get off my couch and go out to it.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be, oh, it's for the love of your team. Not as much anymore. And I think that's bleeding over a little bit into entertainment in other areas as well. What is the hook to get you go see Spidey Across the Spider Verse? Because the first one was so good that I want to see where the story goes. Now you got the hook. Now the question is, once you get me in there, and I buy my $7.99 popcorn that may or may not be stale, I get the big old collector's cup like I did for Guardians with Star Lord on the top. I was so happy to get all of that. Now I've spent $30 on a bunch of empty carbs and sugar that's going to hurt me later. Now you better give me something good, and if you do, guess what, Earl? I'm going to tell everybody how good it was. I'm going to put it on social media. I'm going to tell my friends at school. I'm going to talk to people around me and say, hey, did you see it? Yeah, I saw it, but I don't really know about, what you need to go see it. That positive word of mouth gets it going. And you know what? That plays in Spidey's favor, which is, again, some of these other movies have suffered from word of mouth. Now, some of it is somebody says something bad and people jump on that. By the same token, some people will give some fake reviews that say good things. When I watch them, I'm like, that was terrible. What movie were you watching? So I understand it plays on both sides.
Yeah.
You have to be able to think for yourself in the world in which we live. And I think Spidey is one of those franchises, specifically the animated ones. Is the animation great?
No.
It depends. What's your taste and preference? For example, we grew up in the 80s. We watched Transformers, G.I. Joe. I stream that stuff on YouTube sometimes just to kind of clear my mind.
Yeah.
I watched the animation. It wasn't that great. You know what? It was better than Scooby-Doo in the 70s. Yep. Or how about, here's one for you, an old one, Thundar the Barbarian, or the original Space Ghost. Think about the 60s cartoons. It improved over time. Now we're at a place where we can make video games look like movies and vice versa. It's so seamless. But here's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse doing sort of how would you describe it? An amalgamation of all these different styles. And yet it works for people. It doesn't have to be crystal clear and perfect detail, because that kind of goes with the whole theme of the movie.
Yeah.
And they found a niche, and the audience is responding. And so there will be a trilogy. They did announce, I believe today, or it was either last time or today, that it will close with a trilogy. It will close with the third movie. This one's going to have legs to it, I think, during the summer. Yeah. And I think this kind of puts Elementals in a tough position, because Spidey's going to dominate, I believe, the family market, because Super Mario Brothers is winding down its run. It's now destroying VOD. POD was a musical group. Sorry, in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. My bad. Now it's dominating VOD and Blu-ray, DVD sales, which is awesome. But now there's a vacuum. Spidey comes out at the right time. Now we'll see if he can hold off Elementals when it comes out in a couple of weeks. I saw the preview a couple of times a couple of weekends ago when Lady Cephas and I actually snuck away for a couple of movies just to get away, just her and I. And I saw the Elementals, and I'm like, okay. It didn't spike my interest, but that's not to say that it can't. It's just to say it's got an uphill climb when you've got something starting this high up, and with this kind of trajectory, that puts a lot of pressure.
Did you watch? Films. I guess it's the trailer where they're on the subway or whatever.
Yes.
Is that? Yep. Yeah. I've yet to see an actual trailer for, other than that little. I would call that a teaser trailer, pretty much.
Well, they had a trailer before Guardians. is the one that we saw. Interestingly enough, they did not air it before Super Mario Brothers. I thought was pretty funny. I'm like, yeah, we can't mix our brands here. That's not allowed. Um, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. And Spidey's on a trajectory. I would say they're going to clean up pretty significantly this summer. And so what we're seeing, Earl, I think, is it's almost like a sports analogy. You have the haves and the have-nots.
Yep.
And some of the have-nots have been haves, but that ship has sailed a little bit. Or, like you like to say quite a bit, that fan base has aged and aged out and maybe not come back.
Yeah.
It is a challenge, not just for Hollywood, but for businesses in general
Yep.
to keep people frequenting the different businesses. All right. Well, before we go off into any further discussion of business as a whole, we're going to go ahead and step into what is perhaps our favorite topic of every week, and that is Triple M Overtime. Now, if you're just joining us, you've never heard this, what it simply means is there are topics that, well, we don't have a ton of time to cover. Or maybe they're not meaty enough that we feel like they deserve their own topic. But what we will do is give sort of rapid fire thoughts as we bring a week's program to a close. So, Earl, do you have a Triple M Overtime topic that you want to bring to us as we wind down episode 23?
Well, I actually have two.
Ooh.
The first one is a movie that came out last week alongside Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse. It's a horror film, and it's called The Boogeyman.
Ooh, I saw the trailer for that.
I never saw the trailer for this. I've never even heard of this movie. I remember the one that was made years ago that had the kid off of Seventh Heaven, the TV show. Matt, the eldest brother, was in it.
Yes.
I saw it, but I didn't even know this movie existed until one of my daughters had a birthday, and so we had a little father-daughter outing, and she wanted to go see it. And I was like, they were airing the old movie, but no, it's a new Boogeyman, and it has a budget of $35 million, and in North America, it pulled in $24 million the first week. It has not released overseas yet, and so I'm curious. I watched it with her. She's a big horror buff. Mm-hmm. It wasn't bad. It had several. I mean, they had quite a bit jump scares throughout the film, where I was startled a few times because I was not expecting it. The story's not bad, the acting's not bad, and how a lot of horror movies and even action movies over the last several years have succumbed to the dark, gritty, where you can't really see what's going on. This movie embraced that at the right times. And then they made sure that you could see what was going on when you needed to see what was going on. So whoever directed it, the idea of using the darkness like it's supposed to be used, to be scary, spooky, eerie, but then making sure there's enough light where you can easily see what's going on, made it much more enjoyable. My daughter loved it. I don't hate it, so I can sit through it again if I needed to. And it came out Friday, so obviously Spider-Man hit that liver, just body shot it to death. But, with only a $5 million budget, where do you call success on that? So it's interesting.
So we talk about on the show quite a bit. Horror has a built-in fan base, that genre. Now, for years, it was us watching. You remember going to the movies and seeing the original X-Men movie in the 90s?
Yeah.
And here's all I can remember from that. Rogue is riding in the truck with Logan when she first meets him. And he's looking at his hands like this. And she's like, does it hurt? And he goes, and it's the little tremble in his voice. He's like, every time. And I still am just like, you are freaking Logan. You're supposed to be like, you're darn right, it hurts every time. And I do it again. But no, he's like trembling in his voice. I don't know why that sticks out of my head. But we watched that and we're like, you know what, Earl? They tried to make a good movie. I liked it, by the way.
Yeah, I liked it.
But they tried. And then X2 comes out. And that I thought was really good. I'm like, you know what? They're trying. We
Yep.
have Spider-Man movies coming out. Sans Spidey 3. I have limits to things I'm willing, but you know what? I still watch them like they're trying. You know what? You remember when, and it was hard to get a hold of back in the day, they did Fantastic Four, the Roger Corman movie. And
Yeah.
you had to basically know somebody to get a copy of the tape. You know what? If it had come out in the movies, I'd have went and watched it.
Yeah, we
We
would have had.
we we did the original Captain America movies.
I
Oh
still
yes,
have. I still have the VHS tape.
oh yes, we did with the wings and the
Captain.
motorcycle. Oh yes, we did. I'm still proud of that. Ronnie Cox, still one of my favorite all-time character actors.
Yep.
But we watched that stuff because let's not forget the Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, who never wore the shirt with the skull on it because they didn't want to tie those together.
Don't knock it. I love that movie still.
I do, Mr. P. Happy hunting. Anyway, I could sit here and quote just random things from movies no one's going to get. But here's my point: we were cheering that stuff on. As you get older, unless you're really actively involved in that, you kind of draw back a little bit. But horror doesn't do that. You know,
Nope.
what was the movie came out with the doll? Megan?
Yes.
Oh my lord, a massive hit. No, by the way, you could watch it on Peacock
Yeah.
and people still went to the movies to watch it. Why? There's something about being in a dark theater with a bunch
Yep.
of other people and doing the jump scare.
Or being in a theater with nobody, because we went during the week when people were at work. We hit that matinee showing for the ticket prices, and there were two other people in there. And you know what? What's better than having a crowded audience jumping with you is being like, okay, I felt something touch the back of my neck, and we know there's nobody here, and the AC kicked on good.
right?
That's just as good as being in a crowded room jumping together. So, yeah.
And I think you're right. I think this movie will do quite well when it's all said and done because horror movies, with the exception of what was it, Halloween Ends?
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's somebody got fired at Universal for that one.
We better.
Or at Warner Brothers. The Sword of Zaslav fell very hard upon that person who made that decision to release the movie and put it on same day on Peacock. What are people going to do?
Exactly.
But for the most part, horror movies do have legs. If it's a good story and there's a good scare to be had, people will go enjoy it. And so I'm not surprised it did well. I'm not going to be surprised if it doesn't double, even triple its budget because, again, give the people what they want, they'll come. It's Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
The fun fact about this film is it was originally, I know, a lot of F's there. It was actually supposed to drop on Hulu before it was supposed to go to the theater. So that kind of ties into the second thing I was going to talk about is, so we older people, we remember movies come out, the box office, and then there have been a lot of movies that have flopped in theaters or just didn't have people go see it. When it came out, it became cult classics because people bought the DVDs and the VHSs and all that. Dread with Carl Urban is probably one of the most recent, biggest ones that it was very mediocre in theaters, but it became beloved. Or, Army of Darkness for going way back. There are a lot of movies that made money in that particular area, whether it's DVDs or VHSs.
Mm-hmm.
Does streaming wars and 45 to 60 day movies in theaters dropping on streaming, does that impact the DVD and Blu-ray or whatever it's the HD? It's not HD DVDs anymore. I think it's just Blu-ray and DVDs. But does streaming impact the revenue that people make off of that? And how bad does that hurt the companies?
So my understanding is this has really crushed Disney. Because when Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania didn't do well, you know what they did? They stroked a check.
Yep.
They had Disney Plus's name on it and said, hey, we are going to pay this off and put it on Disney Plus. Hey, newsflash, you're all the same company.
Yeah.
It's literally a line item. But you are absorbing that debt onto Disney Plus, which is why it is forever going to be in the red. Even though they say, well, by 2024, it'll be in the black. 2024 of what year? If we go back and change time, maybe we could change the outcome. That's a tough sell. And so Disney suffered from that because you know what they used to do? They used to license out their stuff.
Yep.
Now Universal's doing that. They'll license their stuff out to Peacock
Yep.
or Paramount or Tubi, of all things.
Yep.
And you know what? You get paid money for licensing that stuff out. Yeah, these companies are realizing, hey, we can still make money off of this. Disney's not figured out that way. They're still paying themselves to eat the loss.
Actually, I think it was over the weekend, they had their first official, I think it was 9 series and a few movies were removed from Disney Plus to go to, I think it was Pluto, I think. It might have been Tubi, I can't remember exactly, but they had their first official expungement of content. So they're catching up. So how do these movies become cult classics and make money if nobody's buying DVDs or Blu-ray anymore?
It's tough because I like physical media still. If you look over in front of my television right now, you will see the DVD sets of The Lord of the Rings and The Fellowship of the Rings. I still like physical media. Now, can I stream those things? Yes. Yeah. But I still like to have the DVD to play it. Now, that's just because I'm old and cranky and ready to yell at someone to get off my lawn. But there's revenue you're leaving on the table by putting on streaming because you know what? There's no incentive to make me pay for anything. You put that movie on Disney Plus. If I'm already a subscriber, you make no money off of me.
And I think this right there, what you're talking about, is where the death of Redbox comes. Mm-hmm. Because I have not rented a movie from Redbox in so long. I actually rented one the other day. But I don't rent them from Redbox because I'm like, before it drops on Redbox, it's on Peacock, or it's on HBO, or it's on this, or it's on that. So why do I pay money for that when I can just watch it at home for free, or instead of doing 2 or 3 movies a week or whatever, taking that money, 1, 2 or 3 movies will cover the price of 1 month of this or 1 month of that. So
the only benefit for me Redbox does is there are a lot of really bad B and C movies that get released on Redbox that I don't know where they actually go on Netflix or whatever. So if I want to see a really bad cop movie, I can go down to my Redbox and find an old wrestler who is starring in a movie, getting a payday, and I want to see that. So other than that,
it's not sustainable though.
Say that again.
It's not sustainable to cater to that specific because guess what? I'll just go to Sci-Fi and they'll find it eventually.
Well, you were talking about Pluto and some of these other channels. They have like the Asylum channel that has all the really bad mockumentaries or mock-you blockbusters or whatever you want to call them. There are other ways I can entertain myself a whole lot cheaper, but that's one of the struggles that Disney's having is how do you continue to monetize? By the way, you were talking about series being taken away, so I just pulled this up. The only season of Willow will be lost. Yeah. Both seasons of the Mighty Ducks Game Changers is being taken off.
Yep.
So they will also be taken off their Cheaper by the Dozen remake, which, by the way, I like that for the record.
With Dennis Quaid, or was that the one with Steve Martin?
It's the one with Zach Braff.
Oh, yeah, and Gabriel Union. That's right.
Yes, we watched that as well. Oh, here's an oldie but a goodie, Artemis Fowl. Did you ever see that movie?
I watched the movie, utter Jedi poodoo.
Ooh, family friendly, Earl. Family friendly.
I read the book partially to my kids. But I mean, I'm pretty sure I'd read it years ago when it first came out, and completely different story than the movie. So you had Colin Farrell in the movie and barely used him. That's not intelligence right there. That's a missed opportunity.
Lady Cephas and I watched it. We're still not sure what we watched, But we watched it, and when it was over, we're like, well, it's obvious we don't take enough barbiturates because I have no idea what was going on in that movie. My mind was not expanded enough, man, to understand what
It's
was
a
going
family
on.
show, sir. Family show.
And when I say barbiturates, what I mean are smokehouse almonds by Blue Diamond, an excellent source of fiber and calcium.
And-
And I do enjoy. I got them buy one get one free this week, Earl, at the grocery store. I'm just being honest with you. I got two for $10. They're like $5 a piece. The big bags.
Yeah.
I'm a happy man about that. All right. Well, I've got a couple of Triple M overtimes, and we'll get out of here. We're just rambling now.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp came out and said this week he has no interest in returning to Disney to star as Captain Jack Sparrow. Will he do that? Well, you know what? If he enough money his way, maybe. The rumor is there was a $20 million offer on the table. Now, if you want to give me 20, you know what? I'm not greedy. $2 million. I'm good. I'll do whatever you want. But it doesn't look like that's specifically going to interest him.
Yeah.
Now, there's all types of rumors about he's mad that he was dropped because of some of the legal entanglements that he had. But we'll see. We know they were talking about rebooting it with Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to have worked out. So we'll see what it does. But again, going to Disney, he is the face of the ride. His animatronic is the face of the ride at Disney as well. So we'll see how that one actually plays. Yeah, well, we'll see how it actually plays out. And I think with that, we are going to go ahead and bring our episode to a close. We want to thank everyone who watched live. If you're watching this on replay, hey, that's cool. We appreciate that. Do us a favor if you would, and that is go ahead and click the like button. That really does help us here with the YouTube algorithm. It gets the show out to more people. If you think other people should have to suffer like you have, here's your chance. And not only can you do it, you can do it with a clear conscience when you make other people suffer. But share this thing out on your chosen social media platform. Do subscribe if you've not done so. And we appreciate all of the support, the kind words, the corrective words, and you all sticking with us when sometimes life gets in the way and we have to do other things instead of the fun stuff we do here on the side. Earl, do you have anything else you want to share before we bail out of here?
We love you.
To our friend Tyler Langford who's joining us tonight. Tyler, I love you, man. It's always good to hear from you. Thank you for joining and hanging out with us. We appreciate everybody. We will be back next week with episode number 24. That's right. We will be celebrating our 1-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Next week. It'll just be a couple of days past when we started this YouTube journey. So we'll have a little bit more of a celebration time. So on behalf of the Earl of Florida, I am your humble host, Lord Cephas. Thank you for listening. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for interacting. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you, all 103 of you, and plus the ones that will come still. All right. Take care, everyone. We will see everyone next week. So long, everybody.